Um, Imagine the scene for a second. It's a Wednesday night.
Right.
May 18th, 1966, to be exact.
Yeah.
And we're in Elmira, New York. Outside, it's warm, but it is raining.
And not just a polite little drizzle either.
No, not at all. It's that steady, rhythmic, really heavy rain that just presses down on the roof and makes the rest of the world feel a million miles away.
It is the absolute definition of a stay inside and do nothing kind of night. The atmosphere is just thick. And honestly, the participants in tonight's story are really feeling it.
Yeah, Jane Roberts and her husband Rob, they are just wiped out. The notes for the session describe Jane as feeling elegy,
Elegy.
which is just a spectacular word. I mean, it sounds exactly like how you feel after a massive Thanksgiving dinner. Just heavy and slow.
Exactly. She's sitting there, she's sipping iced tea, chain-smoking cigarettes, and she is genuinely debating whether she even has the energy to do this.
Right. She doesn't want to work. She just wants to chill.
And Rob isn't doing much better, honestly. He's really dragging.
So you have this incredibly low energy, domestic, totally sleepy vibe. And yet, this is the exact moment they decide to open the door to one of the most profound metaphysical conversations we have on record.
It's a beautiful contrast, really. You have the mundane rain and the physical fatigue, and then suddenly, boom, you have the secrets of the universe pouring through.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are cracking open the archives, and we're looking specifically at session 260 of the early sessions, book 6 of the Seth Material.
Recorded, as we said, on that very rainy night, May 18th, 1966.
And let me tell you, the mission for this deep dive is vast. We have 3 massive ideas on the docket that Seth, the channeled entity, just drops on them.
Right out of nowhere.
First, we're going to look at why NASA, and honestly even modern space programs, might be looking at space travel completely wrong.
The solar system barrier.
Right. And then we're going to pivot to something a little closer to home, your bed. We're going to talk about why your dreams are actually a flight simulator for what happens after you die.
Which completely redefines the entire purpose of sleep.
It really does. It gave me literal chills when I was reading it.
Oh.
And finally, to prove that this isn't just abstract philosophy, we are going to walk through a live test.
The envelope experiment.
Yes, we are going to see Jane, in her tired alamology state, try to identify a hidden object that connects to a ghost from the past and actually seems to bend time itself.
It's such a fascinating session because it bridges this huge gap between interstellar travel and inner travel. It challenges the physical limits of reality in a very practical, almost measurable way.
So get comfortable, maybe grab your own iced tea, because we are about to find out what happens when you decide to channel the cosmos when you would really rather just be taking a nap.
It's funny you mentioned the napping, because that is exactly how Seth starts the session. He comes through, and he immediately reads the room.
He does. He's like the friend who shows up at your house, sees you're in your pajamas, and goes, "Oh, don't worry, I won't stay long."
He literally says, "We will have a short session. I will give you a rest."
And then he proceeds to drop some of the heaviest, most complex knowledge about dimensions and the evolution of the soul.
It is the classic, "I'll just be a minute," that turns into a 3-hour intensive lecture.
Totally classic Seth.
Yeah.
But let's look at that first big revelation, because for 1966, and remember, this is 3 full years before the moon landing, what Seth says about space travel is incredibly radical.
It's completely counterintuitive to the science of the time. Everyone in the 60s, and honestly everyone today, is looking at rockets.
Right. Fire, fuel, metal, thrust.
Exactly. We think space travel is just about building a bigger, more controlled explosion to push a metal box further into the void.
And Seth looks at that entire model and basically says, that's cute, but it's a dead end.
Well, he says it's a dead end for a specific kind of travel. Let's be precise here.
Fair point.
Seth acknowledges that physical vehicles, rockets, ships, probes are perfectly fine for hopping around our own backyard.
Meaning the solar system.
Right. If you want to go to Mars or the moon or send a probe to Jupiter, a physical ship works. It's inefficient, it's dangerous, but the laws of physics in our local neighborhood absolutely allow for it.
But then he draws this really hard line, the solar system barrier.
Yes. He says that you cannot make an effective breakthrough beyond the solar system using physical means.
And why is that? Is it just because the distances are too vast? Because it would take thousands of years?
It's not just distance. That's the mind-bending part. It's the nature of space itself.
Okay.
Seth implies that the laws of physics we experience here are somewhat local. As you move away from our system, the very fabric of reality, the physical camouflage, starts to change or distort.
So a rocket that works perfectly here just wouldn't work out there.
It would become totally ineffective. You
Yeah.
can't just drive a car across the ocean no matter how much gas you put in it.
Right.
You need a boat. You need a fundamentally different kind of vehicle to navigate a different medium.
So if we can't use rockets to get to the next star system, what are we supposed to use? Because Seth definitely doesn't say it's impossible to travel there.
No, not at all. He says, and I want to quote this exactly because it is the core of his whole argument. Mentally, you can cut through space. Physically, you cannot.
Mentally, you can cut through space. I mean, that sounds straight out of a science fiction novel.
It really does. He talks about future space travel being powered by pooled mental or psychic resources.
Pooled psychic resources. Let's unpack that a bit. Are we talking about a crew of astronauts sitting in a circle, holding hands, and just meditating the ship to Alpha Centauri?
In a way, maybe.
Yeah.
But think of it less like an engine generating thrust and more like a navigation system finding a shortcut.
Okay, I'm with you.
Seth makes this really important distinction between dimensions and space systems.
Right.
A space system is a physical location, like our solar system. A dimension is a layer of reality. He says that to get from star A to star B effectively, you don't go through the physical space between them.
Because that just takes way too long.
Exactly, you cut under it. Or through a different dimension.
This reminds me of the rug analogy we were talking about earlier.
Yes, that's the perfect way to visualize it. Imagine a crumpled rug lying on the floor. If you are a tiny ant trying to cross it, you have to walk up every hill and down into every single valley of those crumples.
And that is physical travel.
Right. It's incredibly slow and arduous.
But if you could just step over the folds.
That is mental travel. Seth is suggesting that consciousness, or psychic energy, has the actual ability to fold space, or to just step outside the physical constraints entirely.
So the vehicle of the future isn't made of steel or titanium, it's made of mind.
Or at the very least, the propulsion is psychic. It requires a fundamental shift in how we even view reality. We tend to think matter is the real stuff, and thoughts are just ghostly vapors.
Right.
Seth is saying, no, thoughts are the actual energy that can manipulate the physical coordinates of the universe.
That is a lot of heavy lifting for a quote-unquote short session on a rainy Wednesday night.
And he is just getting started. Because he immediately takes this massive cosmic concept of cutting through dimensions and connects it to something we all do every single night.
Dreaming.
Yes.
I love this pivot so much because usually when we talk about space travel, we are always looking up, but Seth pivots and tells us to look inward.
Exactly.
He says that when we sleep, we aren't just hallucinating random images, we are actually traveling.
It changes the definition of sleep entirely. We tend to think of sleep as a totally passive state. You turn the machine off, you recharge the battery, you turn it back on in the morning.
But Seth says absolutely not.
Right, he says that in the dream state, you're actually traveling through other dimensions.
He explicitly says, quote, in some of your dream states, you do travel through other dimensions and other systems.
Yes.
So if I have this wild dream about walking around in a bizarre city made of glass, maybe that wasn't just my brain processing the pizza I ate before bed. Maybe I was actually somewhere else.
According to the mechanics of this session, yes, you are experiencing a different reality system. But there is a pretty major catch to all of this.
The frequent flyer miles vary, so to speak.
They do. Seth notes that not everyone travels equally. He says some people are rigidly held within their own system.
Rigidly held.
Yeah, even in their dreams, they are so locked into their physical perspective and their daily anxieties that they just cannot perceive these other realities.
So they just dream about their office. Or they dream about being late for a meeting or doing their taxes.
Exactly. They never leave the solar system of their own mind because they cannot open themselves to the possibility that anything else exists outside of it.
That is actually kind of tragic when you think about it. You have this incredibly powerful, multidimensional spaceship sitting in your head, but you just keep driving it back and forth in the driveway.
It's entirely a matter of openness. And this leads to a really fascinating bit of evolutionary history, or perhaps evolutionary future, that Seth drops on them.
This part was wild to me. He mentions that mankind once actually had a heavier body than we do right now.
Yes, a much denser physicality. And he says that heavier aspect hasn't vanished entirely from our genetic makeup, but the direction we're currently heading, it's lighter.
He introduces the concept of the mental body, or what some people might call the astral body.
Right. And the kicker here is that we don't have to wait a million years for evolution to give it to us.
We have it right now.
We are inhabiting it right now. We're double parked, essentially. We have this dense physical meat suit, but inside it, or coexisting right alongside it, is this mental body.
And the dream state is where we actually learn to use it.
Exactly.
Now, this is the part of the session that gave me that chill we talked about, because Seth explains why we need to learn to use this mental body. And it's not just for fun astral joyrides.
No, it's preparation. It is survival training.
This is the heavy existential payload of session 260.
It really is. Seth explains that when the physical body is finally discarded, when we experience physical death, we are left entirely with the mental body.
The training wheels completely come off.
Exactly. And I want to quote him directly here because the phrasing is so specific. He says, "You will learn to maintain stability and identity in the midst of a bewildering number of strange and previously unknown situations."
Bewildering is such a strong word to use there. It implies that the afterlife, or the next dimension, isn't just fluffy clouds and people playing harps.
Not at all. It's chaotic. It's totally strange.
Imagine being dropped into a foreign country where the laws of physics are completely different, the language is entirely telepathic, and gravity is just an optional suggestion.
If you don't have a strong, practiced sense of who you are, you could easily get lost in that. You could become incredibly confused.
So every single night when we go to sleep and dream, we are basically going to the gym.
Yes.
We are exercising our ability to say, I am me, my identity is stable, even when the environment around me makes absolutely zero logical sense.
And here's where the safety net aspect comes in. Seth points out that right now, while we are alive, we have safeguards built in. Our physical personality protects us.
Right, like when you have a terrifying nightmare or things just get way too intense in a dream, what happens?
We wake up. We snap right back into the physical body. It acts as an emergency eject button.
But Seth warns that when the physical body is gone, there is no eject button anymore.
The safeguards are completely removed. You can't just wake up to escape a confusing, multidimensional situation.
That is a terrifying thought.
It is serious, for sure.
Hmm?
But it is also deeply empowering.
Yeah.
Because he is telling us that we can practice for this.
Yeah.
We can get good at navigating these spaces right now.
He even suggests a specific exercise for Rob and Jane. He tells them to try to find each other in the dream state.
The ultimate metaphysical meetup spot. I'll just see you in the astral plane later tonight.
And Sid even says, quote, "Perhaps I shall contact you both some night under those circumstances."
Which is amazing. It suggests a level of interaction and objective reality to the dream world that is just as valid, just as real as our waking physical world.
So we have covered interstellar travel powered by mind, and we have covered the afterlife training ground of the dream world. You would really think that is enough for one tired, rainy Wednesday night.
But they were definitely not done yet.
No, because Seth and, by extension, Jane decides to do a live demonstration, an actual test of these concepts.
This brings us to the envelope experiment.
I really love these experiments in the transcripts because they ground all of this high-concept soaring philosophy into something totally tangible. We move from pooled psychic resources spanning the galaxy down to a simple matchbook on a table.
It grounds the material, but it's also a serious high-wire act for Jane.
Right, because she is exhausted.
She is logy, she wants to sleep, and now she has to perform a rigorous double-blind test.
Let's set the scene for the listener here. How exactly does the envelope experiment work?
It's pretty straightforward. Rob, Jane's husband, would select a random item when Jane wasn't anywhere around. He would seal it inside a double envelope.
So two envelopes, completely opaque, nested together.
Exactly. Then, during the channeling session, Jane, as Seth, would hold the sealed envelope to her forehead or just keep it near her and try to describe what was inside.
No peeping, no contextual clues, just pure extrasensory perception.
Right. And on this particular rainy night, the object Rob chose to seal inside was a matchbook.
But a very specific matchbook with history.
Yes. It was from a restaurant called Mother Goldsmith's in Saratoga Springs, New York.
Oh.
Rob had picked it up years earlier, specifically in August of 1963. It was made of black cardboard, and it had dim yellow text printed on it.
All right, so Jane, who is sipping her iced tea and barely keeping her eyes open, holds this envelope. And this is where a bit of humor comes in because Seth kind of whiffs it at first.
He really struggles out of the gate.
He does.
And it's actually quite reassuring to read that struggle in the transcript because it shows the authentic difficulty of the process.
Right, it's not a magic trick.
No, it's not like turning on a television and watching a clear 4K movie of the object. It's much more like trying to tune an old analog radio dial through heavy static.
So he starts throwing out guesses. He says one or two small white objects, perhaps dice.
Which is totally wrong.
Then he says the numbers 7 and 3.
Nope.
Cufflinks.
Definitely not cufflinks.
At one point, he even senses a sore throat.
Now, that one is really interesting because Seth actually pauses and attributes that feeling to a Dr. In-stream, implying he might be picking up random psychic interference from another consciousness entirely.
Like getting your telephone wires crossed with someone else's conversation.
Exactly. It's a messy process.
And I agree. I think that messiness really adds to the credibility of the whole thing. If Jane were just faking it, she would probably just say it's a matchbook from Mother Goldsmiths and be done with it.
Right. But instead, Seth is clearly groping around in the dark, trying to lock onto the right frequency.
But then, and this is where the hair on the back of your neck really stands up, the signal finally clears.
It does. Seth suddenly pivots hard. He completely stops guessing about dice and cufflinks. He tunes in.
Tell us what he says.
He says, a black or dark color against a light background.
Boom! The matchbook is predominantly black.
Then he gets even more specific. He says he sees a dim yellow.
And Rob notes later, when he opens the envelope, that the cardstock of the matchbook was exactly that, a dim yellow.
Not a bright lemon yellow. Dim.
That is an incredibly specific visual detail to pull out of thin air.
Then Seth says, 1963.
Which is the exact year Rob got the matchbook. He had even written August 1963 on the inside cover.
Next, Seth sees perhaps five lines of writing.
And the cover had exactly 5 lines of large type on it. Okay, so at this point, he is fully locked in. He is undeniably seeing the physical attributes of the object. But then he says something that seems totally random and out of place. He starts talking about a spade.
Yes. He says he senses a connection with a spade and something underground.
Right.
And then he says he doesn't know whether to interpret this feeling as a burial.
Now, if you are just looking at a matchbook from a restaurant, you wouldn't normally think of a burial.
No, not unless you were digging a hole in the backyard to bury the matchbook itself.
So where is he getting that?
This is where the deeply associative nature of psychic perception reveals itself. It is fascinating. Rob explains in his post-session notes that the owner of that specific restaurant, a man named Nate Goldsmith, had died very recently.
Oh, wow.
So look at the psychic chain of associations Seth is following here. The matchbook is black. A spade, like the suit in a deck of cards, is also black.
Right.
But a spade is also a shovel. A shovel is a tool used for digging underground. Digging underground is associated with a burial, and burial is death.
So Seth is touching the sealed envelope, and he is not just seeing the physical ink and cardboard anymore. He is picking up the entire history and emotional weight attached to it.
Exactly.
He is actually picking up the recent death of the man whose name is literally printed on the cover.
The object acts as a psychic link. It's not just an inert piece of trash left over from a trip. It carries dense, energetic information.
And that realization leads us right into the wildest part of this entire experiment, the time anomaly.
This is the part that really made me stop and reread the transcript.
It's a brilliant observation by Rob in his notes. He realizes that Seth is actually getting confused about the timeline of events surrounding the restaurant.
Explain how that happens.
Well, Rob and Jane had visited Mother Goldsmith's restaurant twice in their lives.
Okay.
They went once in 1963, which is when Rob pocketed that specific matchbook, and then they went back a second time in 1964.
I see.
During the channeling, Seth starts giving highly specific details that belong to the second visit in 1964, even though the physical object in the envelope is entirely from the first visit in 1963.
That is fascinating.
Right. For example, Seth says he clearly sees 4 people standing up, and he senses a meeting taking place.
But in 1963, when they got the matchbook, it was just Rob and Jane. 2 people.
Exactly. However, during their second visit in 1964, they met Jane's father and his new wife at that exact restaurant. 4 people, a meeting.
So Seth is holding an object firmly anchored in 1963, but his perception is bleeding over and seeing the events of 1964.
Yes. And this loops so perfectly back to the very beginning of our deep dive.
The space travel concept.
Right. Remember the quote, mentally, you can cut through space.
And mentally, you can apparently cut through time, too.
To the psychic mind, to that consciousness operating outside the limits of the physical vehicle, 1963 and 1964 are not separated by 12 months of a ticking clock.
They're just layered right on top of each other.
They are just 2 different coordinates on the exact same map.
So the error, Seth confusing the details, the 2 separate visits, is actually profound proof of the underlying mechanism.
How so?
Seth isn't just looking at a static photograph of the matchbook in his mind's eye. He is tuning his consciousness into the Mother Goldsmith's frequency.
And when you tune into that frequency, you get all the signals broadcast on it at the exact same time.
Precisely. He gets the death of the owner, he gets the physical color of the cardstock, he gets the date Rob wrote inside, and he gets the emotional meeting of 4 people. That hasn't even happened yet from the perspective of the matchbook itself.
It's all just one massive simultaneous event in the psychic landscape.
It really challenges how we fundamentally think about memory and time. We usually think of memory as a neatly organized filing cabinet where everything is filed away in strict chronological order.
But this session suggests reality is more like a soup. Everything past, present, physical details, emotional resonance is all just floating around together in the bowl.
Or maybe a hologram's a better analogy. If you touch one tiny corner of a holographic plate, you instantly have access to the entire three-dimensional image.
That is a brilliant way to look at it. So let's step back and synthesize all of this. What does this all mean for us, the listener, navigating our daily lives?
We've covered a lot of ground today.
We really have. We went from a rainy, lethargic night in Elmira, New York, to the theoretical edge of the solar system, down into the survival training grounds of the dream world, and then right back to a dim yellow matchbook hidden in a double envelope.
I think the grand synthesis here is really about capacity, human capacity.
Expand on that.
Seth is trying to tell us, even in a supposedly short session where the channeler is physically exhausted, that we're drastically, almost comically underestimating ourselves.
We look at a massive, fiery Saturn V rocket, and we think, wow, that is the absolute pinnacle of travel.
And Seth says, no, your own mind can go infinitely further and faster.
We look at sleep and we think, oh, that's just a nice period of rest for my tired brain.
And Seth says, no, that is actually your real work. That is your multidimensional simulator.
And we look at a discarded matchbook and think, that's just a piece of cardboard advertising a restaurant.
And Seth says, no, that is a living record of a life, a death, and a convergence of events across time.
The core message tying all these threads together is that we are not just dense, physical bodies temporarily trapped on a linear timeline.
We are mental entities.
Right. We are currently driving a physical vehicle, our bodies, around this local solar system of reality, but we are actively learning to drive a mental vehicle that can go anywhere.
The mental body,
Yes.
The astral body, the vehicle that doesn't need rocket fuel.
Yes. And right now, every single night we are in the simulator, we get a fresh chance to practice.
It gives a whole new weight to the phrase, sweet dreams.
It really does. It's not just a polite wish for a nice nap anymore. It's more like saying, hey, good luck in flight school tonight.
Keep your hands steady on the stick and don't lose your sense of identity.
And watch out for the multidimensional turbulence.
Indeed.
You know, thinking about all this, it also makes me reflect on that solar system barrier concept again. It feels like such a perfect metaphor for the struggles in our own daily lives.
Oh, absolutely.
We can only go so far using brute force. We can only achieve so much with purely physical effort, just working harder, pushing faster, burning more fuel.
That's a profound connection to make. Sometimes to make a real lasting breakthrough, whether that's in literal space travel or just trying to solve a stubborn problem in your career or your relationships, you have to stop pushing physically.
You have to start traveling mentally.
You have to change the actual dimension of the problem you are facing.
Mentally, you can cut through space. Physically, you cannot. That quote is definitely going to stick with me for a long time.
It is an incredibly powerful mantra for problem solving.
Well, this has been quite a massive journey for a Prology rainy Wednesday night. And the best part is we don't even have to leave our chairs to take it.
We traveled mentally.
We did exactly that. Now, before we officially wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought.
Hello, homework.
Exactly. We talked extensively about the envelope experiment today. Rob hid a physical matchbook, and Seth was able to locate it and read its history using only his mind, cutting across both space and time.
Right.
So here's my challenge to you tonight. Before you go to sleep, pick a specific object in your mind, or maybe a specific vivid location,
Okay.
and set a firm intention. Tell yourself, tonight, I am going to find this object or visit this place in my dream.
Conscious experimentation in the dream state. I love it.
See if you can actually wake up inside the dream, become lucid, and deliberately navigate your mental body to find that target.
And if you manage to do it, Well, you are one step closer to graduating from the flight simulator.
And if we can't leave the solar system in a physical rocket just yet, maybe it is time we all start working on upgrading our inner engines.
I couldn't agree more.
Now, we owe a massive debt of gratitude to the original source of this incredible material. Today's deep dive was heavily based on session 260 of the early sessions, book 6 of the Seth Material.
These sessions are just an absolute treasure trove of insight.
They really are, and we want to sincerely thank the publisher, New Awareness Network, for meticulously maintaining and keeping this material available to the world.
If this conversation sparked something in you today, if you want to read the raw transcripts for yourself, read Rob's fascinating side notes, and really get into the deep weeds of this philosophy, we highly, highly encourage you to go directly to the source.
You can find all the books and so much more information at sethcenter.com/the early sessions. There is truly nothing quite like reading Seth's concepts in his own unfiltered voice.
Definitely go check out the New Awareness Network website and bookstore.
And just a quick reminder, this podcast is distributed completely free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes. We are just two people sharing the wonder of these ideas.
Sharing our pooled mental resources, if you will.
I see exactly what you did there. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for diving deep with us today.
Thank you for listening.
Sweet dreams, and I mean that literally. Good luck in flight school.